All right, we're gonna go over how to set up camera one. These are all the pieces that you're gonna need. This is the camera one tripod case, camera one head that goes on that tripod, the lens that's gonna go with the camera one, which is a 25 to 300 mil lens, the camera one case, it's labeled on the side here, and then the CMotion case. These are all the cases that we're gonna need. So what we'll do, I'm gonna open up these cases so you can see everything. If you'll take a look at how these cases are laid out, they should be nice and neat and organized, and they should look like this similarly every time you bring it back. Lens case, actually I'm gonna correct this. This piece on this lens should go into there so that the 25 to 300 is faced up. And then the head case, and then finally this case. Also this should be upside down in here. So typically we'll store this with the feet up, just like this. So this is how we'll transport it. All right. So to start with, we will pull out the sticks. I will typically start by bringing it up to a working height. That's just to get me somewhere comfortable. And I'm going to start on the bottom level because you're going to want to go higher than just the first level, and you're making it hard for yourself if you start on the top level. I'll just bring that up to a good working height. One of the things that you'll see here is that there's keys. There's key slots. There's 3 of them. When you put this head on, you're gonna have to fit one of those keys. We'll just do a quick level, so I'm pretty close. I don't have to get it very exact. So when you pull this head out,
I'm show them where the level is, just in case.
It's just right there.
Okay.
So when you pull this head out, you're gonna find this key slot right here. It's also marked by this white. When you grab the head, that's the first thing you're looking for. And you can line up with any of the key slots. It doesn't really matter. It should feel snug on there. You shouldn't be able to turn it. One of the other things that you'll notice when I pulled this out is that the pan and the tilt are left unlocked, and the hard tilt is locked. So one of the things you always want to make sure that you don't leave these locked. We have a tie down that goes in the center. If you want to see if you can grab a quick shot of this, this will just go right in there. Usually hold the top. Spin that up, it should be nice and tight. Cool. Now we can start building. All of the bridge plates are going to be, for camera one, we're going to be in this accessories bin. So we're going to start with our Euro plate. It's going to go on first. For this tab, the way this works, you lift up and you can open it. And then these are side loading. So I can just put this in, push down. Release, so it can slide front and back. To release, I push down, take this out. Makes it super easy and super convenient. One of the other tricks that you can do is if you're building camera 3, you can also load your dovetail straight up. Actually, I can't because this is on here. If you didn't have your suction go plate, you could load that straight on there. So if you're building camera 3, a lot of times I'll build camera 3 on the camera 1, then hand that off to the jib, and then I'll pull out and build camera 1. So we're going to pop this Euro plate adapter in here, like that, lock it in place. This is a tuck and go plate, and what that allows us to do is it allows us to very quickly put it in there, and then with one hand I can grab the camera, with the other hand I can do a release and pick this straight up. So it makes it super easy for moving the camera. When you put this on here, you got to make sure that this is unlocked. So if you need to unlock it, you push up on this, push into that direction, just like that. I'll show you that again. So locked, and you push up and push in that direction. And then when I lock this guy in, it's gonna go heel to toe. So I'm gonna put it in on the heel this side, like that. And I'm gonna drop the toe in. You'll see it does a partial lock. It's in there, but you wanna make sure you lock this the rest of the way. One of the other things you'll notice is the direction that I set all the stuff in. The large rosettes go towards the back. That's where we're gonna put our handles on. The quick release is on the front side of the camera. And again, I'll show you that when you put the camera on there, it's just the easiest way to do it. I'm holding the camera with this hand. I do it like this. I'm right-handed, so it works that way. And then on the dovetail, you have a safety stop, a hard stop up front, right there. And then on the back end, you have a movable one. So you make sure that goes towards the back of the camera. Lock that in place, make sure we're good to go. Next, we're gonna add our bridge plate. This is a BP9 sliding bridge plate. It's got a lock on this side. I'm gonna depress this. You can either hold this back and push in, or you can just line it up and do it. Usually it's easiest to just, if you don't have the full weight of the camera, push in on the back, slide that forward carefully, and then lock this. These are basic friction locks. They do not have to be cranked down all the way. So you'll see that when I lock this, I do it very gently. Same thing with the tripod. If I lock this, I do it very gently. If everything is in balance, there's no reason to crank down on these locks, because that'll just weaken them over time, and then it'll eventually break and we'll have to send these out for repair. So I'm just gonna lock that very lightly. That's only about halfway. I can actually push this lock all the way forward, but I don't wanna do that. Next, we're gonna add the body. So your body should be nicely packed away, like this. And it's got a sliding bridge plate on top of that, and it's gonna slide into here. One of the things you're gonna notice is this little metal tab. That's gonna line up with this right here. This is our safety on here. Each piece has a safety, and then your locking mechanism is right here. So when I push this in, it'll lock it in. Again, you don't have to go super tight on these, just enough to make it tight. So we'll slide this in from the back. What you'll see is it'll click. See, I missed it. This is very easy to miss, by the way. Slide it in from the back, it's gonna click right here. So now it's on that safety, I can't pull it back, and I can't push it forward beyond that. So I'm gonna get it somewhere about even in there, and then I'm going to go ahead and lock it on this side. I'll lock this plate in place. This one does go all the way. It's designed that way, but this one does not. So just make sure. So the full system, now that you can see, it's fairly easy for me to just grab camera like this, pop it off, move this wherever I want to take the tripod, and then take the camera, pop it right back on, heel to toe, and then we're in place. Lock it. Make sure you're good to go. All right, next thing we're gonna do, as we build this camera, because this one has a hard lock, we don't have to be as concerned about balance back and forth the whole time. However, with camera 2, you do want to be very careful with it. There is no hard lock on it, so you're going to always want to make sure that you, after every step, that you kind of rebalance. We're going to add the lens on next, and so what we're going to do is we're going to add these plates in here, or sorry, these rods. These are 15 mil studio rods. These connectors are ratcheting. Most connectors on cameras are. So it allows me to rotate it and put it into a variety of different positions. So I'm gonna get that fairly tight. It doesn't, again, this is not grip equipment. You don't have to crank it down. Just
you should mention,
nice and snug.
You should mention because there's 2 holes.
Oh yeah, okay, so this is our studio setup, 15 mil studio setup. This is 15 mil lightweight setup. We are using the studio setup. That's actually why we have a double bridge plate here, is because it's a studio mode, not lightweight mode. The way I'm lining up where this goes is I am putting my finger on the back of this and pushing this in until it hits that, and I just line it up right there, tighten that down, usually give it one ratchet, a little quarter ratchet like that, then I'm good to go. Next piece, I usually keep this. One of the rods stays in with that. The other rod I keep in with the CMotion system. This is our servo system. The reason I do that is because I keep the these in the correct position along the lens. This makes it super fast for setup and prevents us from potentially losing some of our pieces. So again, I'll line that up right there. I can make some finer adjustments to that later if I need to. Actually, I think I had it so that these were lined up like that. I'll have to remember, once I put the lens on, then I'll know where this rod goes, forward or backwards. So that gets us started there. The other thing I forgot about the tripod, since we're here, I'm gonna go ahead and throw these guys on. These guys should go in just like that. And like everything else, these are ratcheting, so if you need to, you can pull this out, adjust this position. I typically like taking this one and making it go straight up like that, because then we'll end up hanging the cables on that. As you're setting up these handles, you'll really want to make sure that you put them in a comfortable position. Positioning is everything, because it's all about control on camera 1. You have a very tight lens, and so what you want is a comfortable yet somewhat wide stance because that gives you the most control. So I can loosen this guy up a little bit. You'll see how you get a nice little angle there. And then I'm gonna loosen this and pull it all the way down to the bottom, and then I want this whole piece to line up. So I pull it out, see where I'm at, and then I'll usually lock it in right there, just like that. Same thing on this side, make sure I'm in the right spot. I feel that edge, and then that way, with just a little bit of tweaking, I can get something that's fairly centered, feels fairly good, and then it allows me to have a really nice base. The other thing that you'll notice is that I'm fairly comfortable with where my arms are. They should not be, you should not be in an uncomfortable position. If you are, you're gonna end up not making the shot look great. Cool. Next thing I do, again, because I don't wanna keep this too out of balance, I'm gonna add a battery and then I'm gonna throw the lens on there. The order isn't incredibly important, but I'm always thinking about balance as I do this. So we're gonna add this battery on the back. Oh, one little common thing that I see a lot is if you take this piece right here, I'm gonna loosen this and slide this camera forward. If I slide this camera forward and then lock this and try to put this battery on, it won't fit. You see? Just like that. So make sure that you are back far enough on this top bridge plate so that it will fit. Just like that. Voila. You do want to be fairly close to the front when you do that. These are all little tricks and stuff that I've just found over time. All right, so we're gonna add the lens right now. This lens is the heaviest part. So again, I'm gonna verify that we are in the locked position. Again, I'll show you guys really quickly where this is. If I unlock it like that, you can see I can move this and then I can lock it in place like this. One of the things that you'll also notice is I never have locked the tilt or the pan since I've started. The reason is because if you start putting weight on there and you're out of balance, you're just breaking that friction lock. So use the hard lock, and that allows you to also rotate the camera constantly as you're trying to set this up. Make sure you're good. All right, here we go. So we're gonna throw this lens on here. First thing we're gonna grab is our wooden camera universal lens support. We're gonna pop this on the front here. Loosen these guys up, make sure it's on there, there we go. I'm gonna lightly tighten this because I'm gonna want to be able to adjust this as we go. So lightly tighten it, and then I'm gonna loosen it just a little bit so I can still slide it. Next piece we want is this piece. We wanna make sure we don't lose these pieces, but essentially you have a screw, and then you have the part that actually screws into that lens support. So the purpose of this is to keep the lens completely level. One of the things that you'll notice, because this is a universal support, is that I can actually push the lens up or down. So the goal is to try to be in line with the camera. We do not want to be pushing the lens up and down on this. So be super careful as you do this. And the way this piece works is I can lock it in place like this, and then I can push this in, and I can lock this in place wherever it needs to be. And then I can also move this left and right and up and down. If you lock this in place, you're locking around that metal ring, so you can't screw it. So you have to keep this completely unlocked until you get it set where you want. So I've got that unlocked. I've got this ready to go. These are ready to go. So now we're gonna grab the lens. I would recommend doing this with 2 people. What you'll wanna do is leave your lens caps at the case, because you don't wanna try to grab the lens with a lens cap on it, because you've got to be able to grip it fairly well. The other thing I'm going to do is pop this cap off, just like that. I'll line this up in here. I am right-handed, so I will always do it from this side of the camera because I've just gotten used to it.
You should show the key on the actual camera.
Yeah, I'll probably show that on camera too. This is just such a huge lens. So now that I still have this in place, I'm watching how it rocks the camera back and forth. I'm gonna try to hold it as best as I can in the right spot, and then I'm going to line this up. Usually I have to pull this, if you take a look at this really tightly, you can see that I usually have to pull this thing pretty far out, get this in place, and then I'm gonna lock it. I'm still holding the weight of the lens. This weight is what's getting me lined up where I wanna be. Everything else is loose. Now that I have the lens where I want it, I'm gonna first tighten this piece, then I'm gonna tighten this, and then I'm gonna tighten this. At this point, you can let go of the lens and everything is taken care of. So,
Look at that lens. Oh my gosh.
next piece we're going to do is we are going to line up each of these and put the motors on. So in your CMotion, you should have 2 large motors and 2 small motors. The large motors are for focus and zoom. The small motor is for iris. So the small motor is going to go on this. Actually, you can't hold all the motors at the same time. So one motor at a time. These should slip on like this, just like that. And then they tighten in place when you tighten this screw. You see that? So every move I make, I don't want to try to move it while it's tight. I want to loosen this. I'm going to line it up, make sure that we are good to go. I'm going to shift this like this a little bit, like that. So I'm fully engaged. Make sure I'm happy with that. That's where I want it. And now, very important, I'm going to pull it away and lock it. The reason I'm doing that is because we do not want to keep building while these are plugged in. If you start adding power, everything will start moving and you'll hit the end of the lens. We don't want to do that. We keep this out until we've plugged everything in, camera's on, CMotion's on, then we'll calibrate. Next we'll have the next 2 motors. Motor number 2. Again, I'll have to loosen this usually. Get this in place. You want these to be close to vertical, or close to 90 degrees. So I'm gonna, as close to 90 degrees as possible. So that's where I'm finding where I want this here and where I want it there. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll lock that in place. These also really don't have to be cranked down super hard either. They should be fairly light. Most things in camera world do not need to be cranked down. So if you feel like you're forcing it, you probably are, and you probably don't need to. All right, so. And the other thing you'll notice is when I'm lining these up, I'll often kind of move that a little bit to adjust it. All right, so I'm happy with that. So I'll loosen that, tighten it in place. Good to go. So now, let's go ahead and attach the motors together. There should be one of these packages, and I'm gonna try to label these for you guys, should have these 3 motor cables in it. And you'll notice that there's a really short one, a medium length one, and a really long one. I'll hold all 3 of these up for you to see. Really short, medium, and really long. These connect into, you can daisy chain these motors together. So the motors could actually be anything they want. You see how they each have focus, iris, and zoom? I'll be able to select once I get them up. What I found was a really nice and easy way to do this without breaking any of these cables is to put the short cable here, a medium cable there, and a long cable up here. You'll see this in just a second. One of the things that you want to note is that all of these LEMO connectors, these are called LEMO connectors, have a little red dot that needs to face outwards. So when you're putting this in, make sure you don't like twist these cables in a weird way. So you see how both of these red dots are facing out? It should go just like this. I'm going to put this between these center 2 right here, and it should just pop in place. And the way these cables disconnect, like any other LEMO connector, you pull on this collar, and that collar loosens it and takes it out. So again, I'll push it up. So when you guys undo these, don't pull from back here. You're pulling on this collar. That's where it's going to disconnect. And that's going to go into there. I'm going to take my second longest. I'm going to go from this cable. You see I'm on the wrong side because there's no red. So I'm going to flip this whole thing over this way. I'm going to put that guy in there. I'm going to daisy chain over to here. And then the final cable, this guy, can go from either here or here. It doesn't really matter the order. It is daisy chained. So, so I'm going to grab from here. And I'm going to just set this right up here. I'll move this guy out of the way. And set this right up here so that we can get the rest of the CMotion stuff done. The CMotion piece is, this is the cam in. Basically, it's all of our connections that go into our cameras. We do not use these. These are individual motors. We don't use these. Because we have the daisy chain, we use the L bus. On this side, we have our RS, which is where we get our power. It stands for remote switch. You can also, if you ran it off the RS switch off of here, you can also control your camera, like start, stop through it. We have an analog input. This is where we're gonna do our focus. and zoom controls. C bus is for the CMotion bus. That's for any CMotion accessories. We have one of those accessories, but we don't use it on Sunday mornings. And then finally, external is for the external interface. That's going to go into this lens grip camera piece. Typically, we'll leave our analog external and our power plugged into this, but I wanted to show you guys this from scratch just in case you don't have it. We don't have a great way of connecting this right now, so I'm still working on a better way. But essentially, this is tied onto here with a screw, and then this is just a little V-lock that just pops in like that to disconnect it, push in, pull out. Fairly simple. All right, so let's get these cables plugged in. Our L bus, as I said, is going to go in just like this. I don't like that. The way that's going on. So I'm going to take this L bus. A lot of times you'll see I'm trying to route these cables so they won't be in the way later. These have a red tab on them, and you'll see, if you look carefully, you see that little tab right there. That's where the red tab needs to go. So my red tab is here. I'm gonna put that in and find where it goes. There we go, just like that. And then one of the big things that I'm always super picky about, that I want you guys to be really picky about, is the way that these cables are routed, because if you put stresses on these cables, they're going to break. This is a $250 cable, believe it or not. So so I just want to make sure that if you have a twist in it, that you're not pressurized. Like, I would not want to do it like that. I'm going to give it enough space so that it can sit there easily. The other pieces we have are the remote switch, analog and external. These guys should be in here. Your external cable looks like this. I'm sorry, your analog cable. That piece goes into there, and then this has your focus written on one of them, and then the other one is left blank. I need to color code these for you guys, but essentially it's two analog pieces. They both fit into the exact same thing, so if you mess up, you'll just be controlling the wrong thing out of it. This is also a collar connector. It's similar to a LEMO, but it's technically not a LEMO. This does not have any markings on it that I know of, but as with most camera cables, you just press it in lightly and then rotate until it clicks in. Again, you should never be using pressure. If you're using a lot of pressure, then chances are you're putting it in wrong. And then we should have a power cable, which is a D-tap to RS. So the RS, again, you should just find where that goes. There we go. Took me a little while to find that one. I'm going to route this through here, and then I'm going to plug this RS switch into this D-tap. Make sure you look at the direction of the D. It's called a D because see how it looks like a D? Don't plug it in the wrong way. So because it is sometimes possible to do that. That'll reverse the polarity, and then it could potentially cause some major issues. Finally, we're going to add our remote camera piece. So this is going to plug into external on this side. External right up here. Again, there's a red dot on this one, and there is on this one, but just not on this other one. I'll plug that in, like, oops. There we go. So see, anytime I meet any resistance, the first thing I do is I pull it out and try again, because chances are I've screwed something up. Run this through, and then this is going to go onto the front side of this camera, right here. Where is it? There we go. Voila. And then I'll usually try to neaten up some of these cables a little bit. So this is what that should look like. So these guys should all be flashing as well because they're not receiving data from the camera and because they haven't been calibrated yet. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's continue building the camera. The next thing I'm going to add is the monitor, which should be attached right here. This is what's called a Noga arm or an Israeli arm. And essentially these are super awesome arms that you can tighten into any place. One of the very important things is to make sure that you don't grab your monitor and move it while this is tight. If you want to move your monitor, always loosen this first. So we'll loosen that, move it wherever we want, and then retighten it. So I'm going to tighten this really quickly, and we'll pop the monitor on here. I typically attach it from the top because will go fairly high with this camera. So I'm gonna set this up so I can rotate the camera, the monitor onto that. And you'll see I'll just take this guy, the 1/4 20 screw. I'm gonna just start rotating very carefully, just like that. Perfect. As I get that on there, I'm gonna tighten this down, make sure we're good. Now I'm gonna loosen this, and then we're gonna put it into the position, approximate position of where I think I want it. You see how you can move these arms however they need to be moved. I'm just gonna set it about right there for now. We'll get it into its final position later. Sometimes this piece will get loose on here. If you need to, you can use this arm. Just say I'm moving the whole arm. I'm not rotating this piece. I'm just causing the screw to lock. Once I lock that into place a little bit, then I can loosen this. Get this where I actually want it. And then lock that. It does happen. I really need to grab a C-wrench and tighten that down more. Okay, so next, what we're going to do is we're going to add our controls for our camera. So, zoom is going to go on this left side. The easiest way to do these controls is to always make sure that you guys hold it in the right position before you put it on there, because this can be confusing as to which direction this goes. So I want to put the zoom right here so I can adjust exactly where I want to put this. So I'm going to open this up, rotate this. You want the C to go on the inside, so I'm going to rotate this around until I get it. Put this on here. You see I'm doing this while this is all loose so I can get exactly where I want it. So I want it right there. So now that I have this in the spot, I'm gonna start tightening these down. One of the important things that you want is for maximum control and maximum grip, is that you want to make sure this is as parallel as possible. So as I've tightened this in, sometimes what can happen is if you tighten this side a whole lot and leave that open, then this won't be parallel and you won't have good grip on it. So what you want to make sure is that it's parallel as possible. Same thing on the other side for the zoom. I'm sorry, focus. So I'm going to set this focus up like this. I'm going to lock this in place. You see how this side's a little tighter, so I'm going to tighten this back one. Just like that. And so what you're aiming for here, and in fact I'm actually going to move this. So I'm going to move this piece up and put it on this side. What you're aiming for when you do this is you should be able to very comfortably adjust focus and zoom without having to move your hand off of it. So for instance, when I'm operating, I will typically use my wrist on this, wrist on here, and what I'm doing is I am gripping this while being able to rotate this with my pinky or my index finger. Same thing on this side. I'm basically gripping it with this, but I'm using my wrist as an additional grip on this. That allows you to have very good control. So like when I want to push, when I want to rotate this way, I'm going to push on this hand. When I want to rotate the other way, I'm going to push on this hand. This gives you very, very smooth and fine control. So I've always got my zoom right here, and I've always got my focus, which I can do with my finger. The reason that this is important is that what we don't want to see is we don't want to see this, and then for you to jump over here to try to make an adjustment. That doesn't work. That causes a delay, and it also causes a bump in the camera that we can see. So just make sure when you think about how you're setting this up, just make sure you do it in that way. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach these. I'm going to run this up through here. Your focus is going to go right here, just like that. Your zoom is going to go on the one that's not labeled focus. I'm just going to rotate, there it is. All these are collar locks, just like that. Cool. Now that all this is set up, we can add a cable for this. I'm just going to grab one of these SDI cables. You're going to go out of SDI 2. That's your monitor cable is SDI 2. You're going to go into 3G SDI, which is at the top. Input or label, you see how it says in and out? So ins are all this side, out is all this side, and then you have the different types going down the center. This is SDI. We're going to add this power cable right here. This is a 4-pin XLR. and that can go in that spot, and then the 410 XLR will go onto here. So when you replace this battery, you'll have to pull it out. The next thing we're going to go through is how to calibrate these CMotions. So they should all be off the lens, and at this point we can turn on the camera. We already did because we actually were continuing in the last video without realizing that it stopped. So turn on your camera, make sure all this is plugged in. You've got battery going there. You should have a picture here, and then these will typically be flashing. We just calibrated, so they're not, but I'm going to show you the recalibration process. When you press one of these buttons, it'll show you what these are set to: iris, zoom, and focus. If you need to change it, just press it again. So I can switch it to iris, to zoom, or to focus. Once you have everything set right, this is focus right here. This one's zoom right here. This is iris right here. We can engage these motors each. So if I loosen this, put this in place, like that. Loosen this, put this in place, like that. Loosen this, and put this in place like that. Voila. That gives you these three. What we're going to do now is we're going to hit calibrate up here. This is our iris calibration. I'm push and hold this for 3 seconds. 2, 3, let go, and what you'll see is that your motor should start moving. If you see any slippage on these motors, then immediately pull out the L-bus cable and give yourself a chance to reset that. Because any slippage could end up causing the teeth to start getting jammed. Once it's calibrated, you should have full control of zoom and focus. Make sure those are set right. All right, so one of the next things I want to do is I want to make sure that we don't want to use the full focus range of this lens. So in order to fix that, I can press and hold on here, and it'll start I didn't hold it long enough. Press and hold. Once it starts the calibration, it'll do a special calibration of just this. You'll see it goes to the end, comes back, and goes to the end again. Now when it comes back, I'm going to stop it at 20. Let go when it goes back, and hit it again. So it hits the end point twice. You got to let go in between. Now, when I use my focus wheel, you'll see that I can go all the way to infinity, and it stops me right around 20. That way, it gives me very fine control on these pieces. Voila. Okay, so the final thing that we have really is ensuring that we are set up in the right camera mode. So on this camera, there's a file. This is our GUI. I typically don't leave the GUI in place just because there's so many other things on the camera. So usually we'll just attach it for what we need and then be done with it. So let me pull this down out, sorry. So push this in, just like that. Your GUI, your viewfinder should come up here. You can hit home, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to menu, and you're gonna go down to file, and you're gonna go to setup file, and load. You're looking for the one called Sunday. I can't spell, apparently. So I'm gonna hit that. It's gonna do a system restart. And what I want you guys to do is to check all the settings right afterwards. So in order to do that, once it restarts, we'll look at the settings list. And I'll go through each setting. There we go. So you should be in 5994i. Your main, you should in scene 1 for right now, your main color. Your shutter should be off. Your exposure index should be 6400. Your system frequency should be, resolution should be 1920 by 1080. And your white balance should be 4000. Once you've done this, you're good to go. Now, if I remove this off of here, you'll see that your menu will actually pop up here. So make sure that before you remove it, you hit view on here. You should have the picture here, and now you can remove it. You should be good to go. A couple of final little things to know about this camera is that when you set up the lens, you want to make sure that your back focus is right there at the center, which it is. It should lock in place. That should never change. The other thing that I wanted to say, actually forgot what I was talking about. The other thing that you want to do is just make sure that your balance is set up properly. You will have a bubble here, so you can make the final adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and lift this up to upper height, which should be about like this. Cool. And now what we can do, in order to level this, you're going to have to do each leg individually. So I can lower that leg until it's right in the center. And now we're perfect. Next thing I want to do is balance it. So I'm going to hold on to this, pull this out. And I feel pretty close. One of the things that you'll see is immediately, see how it's a little bit front heavy, because if I tilt down and let go, it's going to go front. But if I tilt to the same spot on the back, it doesn't move. So that means it's a tiny bit front heavy. I'm going to shift that on here. I usually back it up just a little bit. I usually find that this bottom plate's easier to slide. So I usually make it a little bit back heavy and then adjust this plate until I get exactly where I want it. A little bit front. So that's going down just a little bit. I'm still just a tiny bit front heavy. I'm going to back this up just a little bit. Now, what you'll actually want to do is wait until you add all the cables before you do this, because otherwise you're a little bit, still just a little bit there. Okay. Okay, so it's starting to go. So it's going down on both front and back, which means I'm going to add a little bit more counterbalance. I'm going to pop this up. I'm going to go like 77%. You don't ever want to go over 100% there. There's a it lands at 99. So what you should see now is that at every position, and I've got my tilt fluid all the way down, it is completely, it'll hold wherever I put it. Good. So that is the full setup, aside from the cables, for camera 1. And I'll show you the cables when we get into place. Final thing I wanted to show you was the iris. Once the iris is set up, once you have your connectivity on this LAN port and you pull your HRP 200 out of auto iris mode, you got to work with your shader on this. Then you can set this iris so that it's controlled remotely. In order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and lock this. What you want to do is there's a potentiometer up here that allows you. So let me just show you this. This is slipping on me. I guess I didn't engage it all the way, so I'm going to loosen this, push this in the rest of the way, relock it, and then I'm just going to recalibrate, push and hold. Okay, recalibrating. Because when I was rotating that potentiometer, these are the little things that can happen during setup, which I'm glad that some of these things are happening so that you're seeing them.